I've never actually found that bottom. Like, it's always further away than you think. Try and convince people or network your way into that position that you want, or start your own thing. Know you're going to make mistakes and really own those mistakes. You're only looking for success with your immediate peers and colleagues, and you get into this echo chamber very quickly.
If you're an innovator, hardship is around you, right? Challenges are around you. Do you have any personal perspectives or stories or anecdotes around, well, I'll say personal challenges and how that added value or actually changed your perspective to leadership and innovation?
I mean, I'm a Catholic, man. I was born for suffering. This is my life. Like,
well, I mean, that's the first hardship. Let's talk about the second.
I came into this world for hardship. No, I mean, I have a track record of not necessarily making things easy for myself. I like where I am today, and I will say that I am better for those choices that I've made. Sometimes in the short term, doesn't feel that way, but looking back, it's like I'm good. I think, kind of generally speaking, I talked a lot about jumping industries, and the first few times that I did that was hard. Right. It was hard because I needed to connect with a new group of people. Right. I couldn't bring a lot of that reputation, a lot of that community, and a lot of that expertise that I had been, garnering for, years before in another space to this new thing that I wanted to do. A lot of times that meant either one of two things. Like, you spent most of your time trying to convince people that you actually had a skill set that was usable for them, right? Like, I grew up in Silicon Valley and I worked for restaurant groups for 8 years. I should be able to work at Uber Eats type of thing. But then getting on a phone call or submitting a resume to someone like Uber Eats, and they're like, "Oh, you have no relevant experience. Why would we ever consider you as an applicant?" The other side of that would be learning to take personal responsibility either for yourself or eventually for your company, for your team, for your organization. And I think that's like the biggest part of this, right? So your options when you're changing industry are suck it up and try and convince people or network your way into that position that you want, or start your own thing, know you're going to make mistakes and really own those mistakes. Even when it's like a small change in industry, right? Going from working for corporate hospitality to owning my own restaurant, right? Suddenly the gravity, the weight of that sense of ownership is multiplied tenfold, right? It's not, I don't have the corporate parachute to fall back on if I make a mistake. This is people's jobs, people's lives, my business, our capital, right? My reputation on the line. In going through all of these experiences, I think the one thing that I really learned is that, in your mind, you always say, okay, like, if I get to this point, this is as bad as it's going to get. This is the bottom. Like, I've never actually found that bottom. Like, it's always further away than you think. Like, the risk is always, it's daunting. You're looking at it in the face. You're looking down that cliff and thinking, okay, this is going to hurt. But it's never actually been that bad. It's, and so don't let the, I guess the fear of failure hold you back from trying to do it. Because I've done this enough times that, like, the bottom is always further away than you think. It's never as pressing as you'd like to think.
Yeah, always add to that. It's like your resilience is a lot higher than you think it is. It's just almost never being tested to the point where you're like, oh shit, I'm not resilient enough. There's like, trust me, you can go a lot harder and a lot deeper. You just never get to that point, really.
And then it makes the highs so much higher too, right? Because you've come so much further. And it just, I don't know, for me, it makes just life, generally speaking, more enjoyable.
Yeah. It's like, people always say you start from zero. It's like, no, if you're that deep, you start at minus 20. But then if you go to plus 10, it's a delta of 30, right? Like, that's massive. But if you look from baseline 0, you go to 10, it's 10. It's still a win, but it feels different. For sure. Good. So, when you're innovate and of like, as a leader, you are innovating, obviously. Are there any insights on innovation and leadership that that you see in building into and building your ventures over the years that have similarities in this specific market if you're building, or any perspective that you say like, hey, that's something that I didn't realize until I was a lot, like, a year, 2 years into it. I was like, shit, oh, that's something that makes a lot of sense.
Two things. One, defining, right? Like, I'm going to provide a definition of Web3, right? For a lot of people, Web3, it was kind of coined by blockchain people. So a lot of people refer to blockchain stuff when they're talking about Web3. I'm guilty of this as well, have a tendency to limit our industry to a specific thing. And I think that is probably the worst thing we can do when looking at like the market, because you're only looking for success with your immediate peers and colleagues, and you get into this echo chamber very quickly. So I've really made it a point over the past 9 months, year, to start looking at Web3 as all of the emerging technologies, right? Going back to 2017 when, hey, Ethereum is going to be the next generation of the internet, blockchain is going to be the next generation of the internet, leaving the blockchain part out of it and then just saying all of this emerging technology, this will be the next generation of the internet. And so that, very naturally lumps in things like AI, right? For compute. Blockchain can be the infrastructure stuff. Metaverse soon, someday, like it probably won't be called the metaverse anymore, but like we are innovating in new ways to interact with digital technologies. And the kind of those three things coming together, new interface, new infrastructure, new compute, that's Web3, right? In whatever form that takes. And that's the same thing that happened with Web2. Like, yeah, we call it the cloud, but really it was the introduction of broadband internet and Amazon Web Services, and then later EC2 and then Lambda and all these other technologies that made YouTube possible, right? Those people that were building is like, oh no, I do, data center infrastructure. I do, RAID redundancy. Like that was their industry, but really what they were building was this larger thing. Specifically for blockchain tech, there's a tendency to look at token prices as kind of your North Star for what market we're in. And I think that that's wrong, especially as a founder, right? Tokens can be up, tokens can be down, but the reality is that a lot of the things that influence token prices have nothing to do with the technology that we're building. And that's also why we have like this incredible volatility. So we're always fundraising, but unless you're, particularly exposed to token prices, the reality is that we've kind of always been in a bull market. The technology has continued to improve, and it's improving faster, and it's being harder to keep up with. And so I don't, when we talk about market, especially with other founders, we don't look at, hey, Ethereum's up, Bitcoin's up. It's more, hey, did you see what these guys did with this tech? Have you thought about what you could now do with this, right? These guys have now a network for GPU templates that is cheaper than running it on Amazon. And so you can do AI on the blockchain faster. How does that impact your business? And in that sense, right, we get very, very quickly to a conversation about timing, right, which I think is really more of what this market question is about. It's about finding product market fit. Product market fit comes back down to timing. What does the market need now? And do I have a solution for it now? And can we monetize it, right?